Hello, good morning. This is Playbook's managing editor and author, Jack Blanchard. It is Wednesday, March the 26th. It's my birthday tomorrow. The sun is shining and everyone here in DC is still obsessed with the biggest national security leak we've seen in ages. Here is what's driving the day. We're getting a third day out of the Signalgate story as the White House circles the wagons around National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. He was out on TV last night along with the President Donald Trump explaining why nobody needs to resign over this scandal and how it was all just an innocent mistake. The Vice President, J.D. Vance, is making a speech in Virginia. The Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, before a House committee. Pete Hegseth, the Defense Secretary, is over still in Hawaii and headed on to Guam. And so we will hear from those as well as the White House tries to get its story straight about what went wrong. Also be seeing another member of the cabinet, Kristi Noem, who's in El Salvador today. She is going to visit the prison where all those Venezuelan migrants were deported so controversially a couple of weeks ago, and she'll be meeting the president of El Salvador. And I would imagine we'll see some pictures of her showing off her credentials as she marches around that place. But there's no doubt that it's the Signal story that is still dominating stuff in Washington. And I'm delighted that I will be joined today by Dasha Burns on the podcast. Dasha, you are our queen of the White House. You've been following this story closely all week.
Queen or jester? I don't know. One of the
two. you decide. We'll let the listeners decide, shall we? But I mean, this story must have just dominated your week, right? Since it erupted on Monday morning and everyone's jaws just dropped as they saw what had happened.
Oh, I woke up on Monday thinking, oh, it's a rainy, quiet Monday. What could possibly go wrong? I still have not been able to lower the shock level among the group of reporters that I've been talking to. I mean, we are still stunned, especially as we're watching the reaction out of the White House. I think there are still so many questions about what happens from here and how this is handled, and the contrast between what we're seeing publicly and what we're hearing behind closed doors.
Are you surprised, Dasha, that we haven't seen anyone resign over this? Or is this what you'd sort of expect from this sort of quite defensive type of administration?
I mean, look, the Trump playbook is never apologize, never admit a mistake, deny, and just push through. The problem this time is that this reporter, the editor of The Atlantic, has the receipts, and the White House itself has confirmed that it's authentic, and that makes it a little bit difficult to deny. And Trump, the fact that President Trump did call it a glitch or a mistake, that alone is huge, because he hardly ever does that. But it's difficult for the people under him, the people in this group chat who are trying to abide by the Trump playbook, to now figure out how to navigate this to keep themselves in good graces with the boss, let alone the court of public opinion.
You broke the story on Monday night that Trump was considering, or at least there were conversations about whether Mike Waltz would continue in his job. It's pretty clear now the president thought about it, slept on it, woke up Tuesday morning and decided he was going to row him behind his national security advisor. At least so far, he's put out various interviews through the day in support of Mike Waltz. And then we saw Mike Waltz wheeled out onto Fox News on Tuesday night to sort of give his side of the story. What did you make of how Mike Waltz presented what happened?
Oh, boy. Given the conversation that I was having with my sources earlier on Tuesday, which was basically that after that initial public appearance from Trump and Waltz, where the president was getting questions about this, he turned to Waltz and said, "Why don't you talk about it?" And Waltz,
thanks, pal.
right, and which is a very Trump thing to do. Like, this isn't my mistake. Like, you go off and you explain it. The senior officials of the White House weren't thrilled with how Waltz handled that it was an opportunity Trump gave to him to say, hey, own the mistake, say, we handled this improperly, but like, we're going to move forward and we're not using Signal anymore or whatever. Instead, he ended up kind of raising more questions by saying, I don't know how this happened. We're going to look into how this happened. I don't know this journalist. I don't know who he is. All of which was a bit disingenuous to some of the folks who were listening, including those inside the White House. Look, I think this interview with Laura Ingraham, this interview was pretty shocking to me, to be honest with you, given this is a friendly platform and you're hearing Laura Ingraham really kind of press him with a smile on her face, but press him saying this is at the very best a distraction for President Trump, and it works. Like, why did you have this guy's number in your phone? Like, how does that happen? And he didn't quite have a good answer for that.
He didn't even slightly have a good answer for it. I mean, he was floundering. I thought he did say it was embarrassing, and he did say, that it was a mistake, and he did say, I take full responsibility. But when it came to the, well, yeah, how did this happen? You're the national security advisor. How could you have let this happen? He was coming out with all sorts of slightly crackpot theories, suggesting somehow that Jeffrey Goldberg, he sort of insinuated, might have somehow almost like hacked his way, he didn't use those words, but somehow broken his way into this group. Then he was like, oh yeah, well, you know how on your phone when you've got a contact and then somehow another contact like leaks onto that, like, does it? Does that happen? Really? And then he said he was going to get Elon Musk to look into it because he's like this great tech guy.
Oh yeah, we have the greatest technical minds looking into this. Like, what are we looking into? And a lot of it was unsurprisingly, blaming the media. At the end, Laura Ingraham kind of tried to give him another chance at this and said, lessons learned. He says the lesson learned is that there are journalists out to get us. And I'm like, look, I don't think Jeffrey Goldberg asked for this. I know privately most reporters are hoping and praying that something like this will happen to us, frankly, to accidentally be involved in a signal chat with all of the best sources in the government. I don't think any of us will ever get that lucky ever again. And thankfully, he handled it as responsibly as he could. But the messaging on this is messy and the fallout of a quite an embarrassing situation.
Right. And that's one of the things that struck me. We had this scene yesterday where we saw Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national insurance, and then the head of CIA, John Ratcliffe, sat next to each other at a Senate committee, both giving completely different answers about this. One saying, well, I can't talk about this. The other one going, well, I can. And like, well, that's kind of weird. Like, you clearly haven't got your ducks in a row. Then on TV last night, we saw Waltz coming out saying, no, this wasn't a member of my staff's mistake. We had Donald Trump on the other channel saying, yes, we think it was a member of Mike Waltz's staff who made this mistake. Like, this is not an operation that's got a grip on this story and said, here is what happened. Maybe they don't care. I don't know. Or maybe they're
they care. No, I mean, behind the scenes, I'm hearing, and some of this is in Playbook this morning, there's quite a lot of tension in the White House right now. A lot of senior staff still do believe that Waltz should resign, but the strategy around that is complicated because one source told me that if a scalp drops right now, that sets a pretty bad precedent. So far, they've been pretty tight. They've closed ranks. They haven't had a lot of palace intrigue, and they're worried that pushing Waltz out, even if he deserves it, as one source put it to me, could be the sort of snowball effect that they want to avoid. At the same time, if this story, if the news cycle is long and if it's bad, I think everyone in the White House, including President Trump, is watching and assessing. And I'm very curious to see some of the responses come in on that Ingraham interview.
Yeah, right. And you just wonder, has it got more to play, or is it now going to peter out? That's the sort of thing that Donald Trump certainly will be wondering. The question is, I guess, the bigger question is, how damaging is all this for the administration? My thought would be this is a very visible issue of incompetence, and that's always a bad look for the government. So far, this administration has done a reasonable job on the competence front. Whatever you think of their policies, I would argue, compared to the first time when there were all manner of clearly things going wrong the whole time, this is the first major blunder, and Donald Trump won't want to see many of them. Exactly.
Unforced error. That's the thing. I mean, you can criticize some of what Dozer's done, and Musk has said, we've fired some people that maybe should be fired, but this is the first. I mean, there's no debate about whether or not this was a big problem.
Yeah, an exciting one to have enjoyed. All right, well, Dasha, I know you'll be staying in the White House and watching what happens over the next few days. I'll be looking forward to reading your coverage. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Is it Friday yet?
It's never Friday. It's never Friday in Trump 2.0. Sorry.